Build section time, thanks for coming back. We've got a bit of this going now. Bring this in so I can see what you see. Alright, so I guess there is a couple more wires that I'm going to do before I'm done with this section. I'm going to bring some wire and some power off of this main board in two separate ways. The first one I'm going to concern myself with is feeding the power to our little voltage regulators. Yeah, there we go. So for that, these guys actually end up sitting up at the front over the drone. So I'm going to have a little look at which way that is. We've got the inside there. So we'll just get those kind of ready. That's what we're doing. We've got the 5 and the 12 volt. Nope, that's that way around. Put the buzzer aside, we don't need that guy just yet. And we've got a whole collection of naze pins. We'll be using some of these, but definitely not all of them. We got a little... We're going to go with these pins right there, 2 header and the 6 by 3. Come back and we'll do some more of that wiring in a minute. That's going to go to that piece. Right, so wires are going to come off of the main power distribution. So don't forget, if you've got 4S going on, you've got 14.8 volts coming off of this guy, or what is it, 16 when they're fully charged. So that's a lot of volts. So we're going to pick any two of these, really doesn't matter at this point. Again, we're just concerning ourselves with this 5mm height restriction that the naze is going to put on this. We don't want to go too high, we've got to keep it low. And I'll probably end up threading one of these wires underneath there just to keep things out of the way, or maybe I'll go around that way with that one and this way with this one. Now I don't have to go too far because we've got the FPV cam that's going to come into here. So I'm really looking to only have to come to the inside of these, which is the in there. So I'm going to go around about that far. It's going to leave me with a little bit of extra wire, which is good, because I've got another plan for that one in a minute. So, same, let's get tinning and prepping. I need to dig myself out. I wonder, is the focus? No, the focus isn't better there. I'm going to jack this thing up. Let's bring it in. Yeah, thanks mate. Alright, that's a little better. It's a little glary, but let's see if we can't fix that. It's getting worse. Getting a bit better. What do we got? Well, it's kind of all crap, but anyway, you get the idea, you'll be able to see well enough. So what? Prep out a bit of here and a little bit here. Really don't need too much of that, just a tiny bit. Just really helps the solder go on. Be right back. I'm gonna wet my sponge. Oh yeah, that's happened. You might just want to use a laptop upstairs. That should be fine. As always, trying to make sure I'm avoiding those uprights. I kind of go backwards and forwards on this just a little bit because the solder gets stuck. Just kind of melts itself in. So I'm just trying to evenly distribute some heat and some solder. There we go. I've got these wires tinned on the one end, but I'm going to cut them and I'm going to prep out the way that I want to go. Make sure that's not too hot so I don't burn myself. I'm just going to pin those down, get an idea as to where I really want to be with this. When I stick this down, I'm going to be around about there. So probably give myself just a little bit extra. It's always good to have some play. I think if I come across there, I'll throw measurements in the actual dock, but for now I'm just going to cut those off, eyeballing it right about there. Be the same length. Right, put these two aside, we're going to use those again in just a second. Definitely a useful piece. You can strip them and tin them later, but it is definitely a bit more difficult.
Phone's not working. Mouse is gone. Logged out on the computer upstairs.
Alright, buddy, you do your thing.
That was the passcode.
Whatever. Okay. I'll tin this little wire. Obviously, I don't want to be holding on to that. It's going to get pretty warm. So, let's just do this out here. That can be seen good enough.
Inactivity alarm.
Ah, there's a sweet feature. Don't forget to turn your radios off. Don't want to waste your batteries.
Welcome to OpenTX.
Always keep an eye on your batteries too, make sure that you're not too low, too high on the lipos. They're pretty unstable. Alright, let's tin this guy. How are we doing on that audio? Sweet. The wire's still pretty warm and I just pulled that off, so do watch out, ladies and gentlemen, don't burn yourselves. I'm so fortunate never to touch the tip of one of these soldering irons, but I know my day is coming. A lot of respect for something that's as hot as it needs to be to melt metal. Alright, let's do the negative first. Tweezers.
Get your Bob Ross.
Bob? Get off the bob!
Start soldering some pretty little trees, man.
I need a pretty cool beard. I'm gonna work on my hipster look. Alright, stay off the plastic. That's a pretty good one. That'll work. Get me where I want to be. Down onto the front of one of those. Just kind of make sure I'm happy. Yeah, I'm stoked about that. That's plenty long enough. Probably a bit too much, but I'm alright with that. Okay, yet again good enough. It's nice to give your wires a bit of a twist. Keep them tidy. Get some of that geomagnetic field kind of coiled up. Twisted pairs, eh? Get the twisted pair going. And that should still get me enough length even after the twists to be able to get out to where I need to be. These just end up, you kind of keep pulling the signal wires for the ESCs out of the way, just keep getting them out of your way. You're not interested in those yet, so whatever it takes to kind of pull them out of the way, just keep doing that. Plenty of time to mess with those later. Positive, negative, so I got those the wrong way around, but that's fine. I think maybe one less twist is probably the answer there, to be honest. That's fine. I'm just playing, I'm just messing around at this point. Okay. Positive, negative, yep, that's, no, bollocks. That's the way they need to be. It's that way around to go into the board. Cool. So that's the power that's going to come from the raw power board that's obviously feeding your ESCs, and it's going to feed our little voltage regulators. We're only taking one off because we're going to do a nifty little trick and come off these and power the other one straight from these two little pins that we've got chilling right there. A little bit of prep work, a little bit of fun, but let's keep focusing on this board. We've got one more to do, and that is all about the battery voltage monitoring that the NAS provides. So you really need the dirty power straight from the battery. You don't want it going through any filters or any voltage regulators. It just needs to be straight from the battery. So the best way to do it is take it straight off of this guy, and we figure out which way around our NAS is going to go. It has a little arrow showing forwards. If you do nothing to the NAS with its yaw, that is the way it's supposed to be in. But we actually changed the rotation of the NAS to better suit us. It suits us with the way that these receiver pins come off the back here, so it's just minimal wiring. This is the way that we go about it. We'll take care of the orientation of the NAS in software later. So when I do that, here's how I'm thinking about this. I flip this guy up. What I'm looking to do now is to take two wires, very short wires, off of this positive and negative pad, and I'm going to go into this VBAT. The VBAT is the one at the very end, and I got a positive on the inside and I've got a negative on the outside. So that's my goal, that's what I'm aiming for, and I can just kind of leave that there, or just remind myself that that's the way it's going to go in, so I'll put it down in that same way.
It even says VBAT.
It does, yeah. And there's tons of diagrams out there on the internet to help remind you of those facts, so that you don't make a mess of it. It's easy enough. We'll share all of this out in very good detail in the docs. I think I just cut my wire off there. Oops. Bring that back in. Okay, I'm just stripping these wires. I'm just looking to get a little bit of tin there, a little bit on the end. I'm probably not going to tin this end so much because I really want to get it through this hole. It's kind of one of my more recent tricks that I've found is if I don't tin it and I just give it a bit of a twist, I have a way better chance of getting it through this hole, and then I can tin it once it's gone in. Sometimes the twists actually make it worse. But what I'm really trying to do is just get a solid, there we go, see that? It just dropped through. 22 gauge wire fits perfectly in those holes. So pretty happy about that. That's what I'm shooting for. I'll do the same thing to the red one. And it's pretty short, the end that I'm looking to do through the naze board. I keep it pretty short, and then the other end I actually go a little bit further, a little bit longer, because I want a better contact on this pad. I want it to be able to kind of take a bit of weight, take a bit of a pull. Now I don't want my wires sticking out of my drone, so I don't want my wire bent like this as it goes up. I'm kind of picky about that, so I've got to have a balance between being able to take this off if I need to, if I want to. I don't want to have to undo all the soldering, I just want to be able to lift this off, and I want this board to be able to sit like this and still be connected here. So let's just deal with it step by step. First steps, I'm going to put the wires through these tiny holes for the V-bat, and then I'm going to solder them in. There goes the positive. We bring that negative back in. As you can see, it's the shorter end I'm going to use. I'm kind of twisting it as I do that. So I've got those two wires there. They're happy. They're sitting pretty. And I'm going to use these to help hold them in place. Whilst... Where's that magic third hand? Would you magic third hand your way into pinching the crocodile clips open? Ah, balls, my wire fell out while I did that. So again, I still need the rubber. I don't want to damage the wire. I want to hold them in place nice and securely while I manage to get these through the naze board. Sweet, give us a pinch. Alright, so Dave's hooked me up. Now I've got to have the trick, which isn't going to be easy, of like moving the arm and the board all together without the wires coming out, flipping it over just like that, setting it down. Hey magic third hand, do us a solid. Your goal is to hold that naze really nice and steady, and I'm going to try and bring it back into the shot. Yeah, bringing it back into the shot. That hand's going to get a little warm, so watch those fingers there. This one will probably be alright. There you go. Alright, now there's a ton of ways to do this. Magic third hand's obviously the best. I'm feeling pretty good. He's got a good grip on that, so without too much messing around, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to get it tinned. Because I really want this tin to go in, I'm going to pre-solder, I'm going to flux just a little on the top of these wires.
J.Stu says, has anyone ever found the tiny 5-volt hole to be a total waste when there's a whole 5-volt pad on the opposite side to solder to? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think...
5-volt out hole, total waste.
So the 5-volt out holes, generally I think you're right, mate. If I don't have to go in the holes, I'm not going to. And I think that 5-volt over there, isn't that an in? I might be wrong, but I think that's an in. And I think it's the in to power the board, rather than this one specifically is the in to read the voltage on the battery for telemetry. And that's what we're working on right now. We're working on the telemetry factor. So it's kind of a no choice situation. Alright, little bloopy there. I think that got it pretty good. I'm going to do the same. I'm really trying to heat up the wire and the hole at the same time, and then just drop a little bit of this solder in underneath it, keep it really hot. Hopefully it goes down the wire while it does that. And that should be really, really good. A couple of little solder joints, Dave, I think you're done. Thank you, sir. Alright, so there we go. Let's have a quick look at that. My wires are super flush to the bottom, so I don't have to worry about anything. Kind of shorting out or becoming a bit of an issue for me. And then on the top side we got a couple of really good solder points, so that's what I was shooting for there, ladies and gents. Pretty happy about that. I usually check things with diagrams, but I've kind of done enough of these now that I'm just going to risk it and take my wiring as it comes to me. Jace, you made me want to look at my my diagram again just in case, but pretty sure those 5 volts are an input, and that's to be able to power the board. Now you've got a lot of options when it comes to powering the board. You can power it through any of these 6 pins, and that's what we're about to do, because I just want the shortest wires possible, and I'm not going to bother going all the way over there when I can be over this side right here. We'll get to that. Not there yet. Okay. Before I solder these down, I've just remembered. Again, classically, I want to bend them. I want to make sure that they're ready to go under that 5mm gap. So I'm going to put that bend on them right now, and again, that's looking really good for me. So I undid my twist. Now I'm going to be soldering everything else onto this board before I knock this down and I make that final commitment with those wires down onto these pads. So either way, I will prep these pads down here with the wires the way that I feel that I'm going to need them. Try and get my damn hands out of the way for you guys so you can see. I think that's what I'm going to do with the positive. I'm going to come down like this, and I'm going to go onto that pad. And as far as the ground goes, I think I'm going to come this way, and I'm going to go onto that pad there. So I'm going to do that one, and I'm going to do that one, and that should enable me, obviously, if I kind of just hold them down like that, somewhat in space, I can just test it and be like, yeah, definitely, I'll be able to come off and on like that. So no worries. Those are the two I'm just going to prep out really quick, get my board done. There's way too much of the goo, but a tiny bit is all I'm really looking to apply.
Jay Stu says, maybe I got confused, it was power to a spectrum cell.
Yeah, and some of it's power out, right? Power out, power in. We definitely, take the power out to go to our receiver that we use. And that all comes part of it. We end up taking the power out from this, and because we do PPM, we're actually taking the power out of the board off of these two over here. And then when you've got a Spectrum versus the FR Skies that we use, it's totally different. So I'm really making this video custom to the gear that we recommend and that we sell. And for those of you that use different stuff, you gotta figure it out. Trying to step ahead of myself here. Things get pretty crowded pretty quick, so if I can just kind of pre-tin a bunch, then that job's done. One less thing to have to come back to. And I don't really remember which way around this wire went, so I'm just going to kind of over tin both sides of this semicircle. This one just a little bit more. Sweet. Alright, I think that's me for a bit of that. Now we're going to move on to the nays. I'm going to drop this out of the vise for a second. Come back to a bit of that. Now most of you have got these 3-pin connectors around. If you don't, then you're going to go ahead and you're going to use these during this process. But I am going to use just a couple that I have hanging around doing nothing. It's just an old ESC. I like to use 2 during this moment because of the way that we do the wires. A lot of people will come in here and they'll take their pins and they'll do that off the side, or you know, they'll use the 6 block and they'll go straight up and down, but I'm just not a fan of any of those methods. I really like taking the pins and keeping it compact and going right over the middle of the board. Sometimes you got to fiddle with these guys just in case they've moved in shipping or whatever, but that's really what I'm looking for. I like going this way on the naze board. It's really clean, keeps your wires in the center, stops anything hanging out the drone. That's what I'm going for. Now I've obviously got these parts that I mentioned. They're very important. You don't want to prevent yourself from being able to put this on the pins because you've allowed that to go too far down. So the way we get around that is you just get, actually always do this, I learned this the hard way, always put your pins in the holes, and you can put your finger on the back side and you can kind of keep things flush like that. And then I'm making sure that I have a gap between the microprocessor and the pins, and I push that one on. And then just because I'm kind of anal like that, I'll just get a second one and I'll push the second one on. So now I'm really happy that I'm not going to have a problem with my ESCs connecting when I've got my pins soldered in place. So I'm pretty stoked about that, and my pins don't move. If you start trying to push these on without the pins being in those holes, it messes up the pin alignments, and then you got to pull them back and use tweezers. Real pain in the ass. Put them in the holes first. Alright, so I'm going to come down and I'm going to make my life easy as I can. Quite simple. I could flux everything at this point just to make it all go a little easier. I guess let's do that. So I'll take that back out for a second. I'm just going to take all of these pins and I'm going to just drop them in the goo, just the tips, and that's not a lot, right? As you can probably see, it's really light covering, but it's enough, it's plenty. And now we'll just carefully put those right back in those holes. It takes a bit of a wiggle. Again, I'm going to put my finger on the back side. Just want to feel it. Damn it. Right, so we're flush. Now I'm going to go for the outer row. One at a time, without things moving. Just trying to drop down the other side. Check it again, make sure I haven't moved. These 3-pin headers generally will keep you pretty honest at this point. They'll keep you in good shape. Of course, you can do it flat on the desk. Be really careful when you're doing this part not to touch the components on the naze. So just be super careful about that. Now that I've got 2, I've got a fair amount of stability and security in that naze pin, so I can see that one of them's gone all the way through, the other one really hasn't. But I'm going to change gears, I'm going to turn it upside down, and now I'm just going to work on doing all of these from this side, and then we'll go back on the top and we'll see what else we need to do. We'll kind of clean it up a little bit, or add a bit more if need be. And the flux is super good at this point to help you get that solder dropping in both sides. Get it nice and hot, push some in. It should make a nice Hershey kiss on the opposite side. just enough to make a little bit of a ball on the top. Keep the tip clean. If you get any mess on it, just knock it off. Start going forward again. And this is another one of those reasons why I'm a real big fan of this really thin solder, because you don't want it to gloop. There's actually someone in your office that did that. I thought you just found it.
No, it's today in the
Bloody
office.
brilliant. A fantastic outfit.
I think Randy's got to be my favorite South Park character.
Yeah, he's a good one. Sometimes I'll stay a little longer on the heat, and I'll put a little more solder on the center row, the positive row, because it's very difficult to get in there on the other side once you've done this. You just can't get the tips in, right? So give them a little bit more love. Just a couple more.
I always enjoy doing those ones.
It's kind of nerve-wracking at the same time. You're like, if I get this wrong, oh, don't gloop the whole naze. I love it there. As you can see, it's not hard. For those that don't solder very often, there's nothing to it. You got to take your time. That's all there is to it. You got to have a little bit of patience. Watch and repeat. Alright, cool. That's those. Now we'll flip it over and we're going to have a look as to see how that did on the other side. I know the video's going to be a bit tough at this point to see what's happening, but let's see what we can do about focusing that lens. I just move that kind of slowly. You can kind of see that there's a bit of a Hershey kiss been built up across the base of most of those connection points. Oh, that focus is just crap, but you can see it. It's got that reflection. It's looking pretty good. I'm just going to have another good look, and every one of them looks awesome. The solder really came through the board and went down the pin, so we've got some really good connections there, and now we can just pull those off without any trouble. No worries. Off they go. Cool. Top pin's done. Okay. So we obviously recommend certain components go with these when we build them. We recommend this FR Sky, the D4R2, brilliant little lightweight, PPM enabled telemetry, receiver. It's brilliant. They just don't get any better than this, I don't think, for for what we're trying to do. You get all the pins, you get the little jumper cables, and it comes with some, well, let's just call them attempts of an instruction set. They try. You get some information, but we'll make it easy. We'll show you what's what. Alright. Pieces that we don't need. This wire. Don't need that one. We are going to want to use one of the telemetries on this side right here. So it shows you, you've got the RX, receive, R, and on here we've got the telemetry, and we're going to use the TX port. So TX, transmit out, receive in, so out in, that's what we're looking at. You could just cut these wires, there's a million ways to do this. I personally like to save my wires for later just in case I want to use them for something else. I don't like chopping them off. So I come along here and risk a finger every time, and I get my scalpel and I push it slightly underneath that little plastic tooth, and then that pops out. So I've got the wire. Brilliant. And I'm just going to go down the line. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take all those little wires out. It doesn't take much. It's a little finicky. You can see I've kind of got a trick on how I hold the white piece. Starting off, just getting under that white lip is about the hardest thing. Just hold that and out it comes. I really only want the green, so that's it. That's all I'm going to run with. And this is keyed. There's little teeth on the bottom to show you which way around it goes. It's kind of self-explanatory, but you know, like I said, I've done it before, so I know which way it goes in. It goes in that way. These are my antennas, receiving, transmitting. The little button in here for the binding, and also the failsafe, very important. The next thing we're going to do to prep out this transmitter is we got to use a little jumper pin. Those of you that have been into computers way back in the day, I'm sure when you were trying to come up with the IDE master and slave, you were messing around on hard drives and you were using these tiny little jumpers on your hard drive, so something you're definitely used to. And we're going to jump 2 pins on the end, and it's where the 3 and the 4 are written on the top of that. We're going to jump these pins. Now, I've personally had one of these fall off because crashes are pretty violent. So one of the things that I've learned to do is come along and splay these pins out just slightly. So I'm going to come to the end of the pins and I'm going to twist this to just give them that much of a little bit of pressure and have those pins bent out. That didn't work as well as I might want, so I'm going to use something a little more sturdy. I'm really not looking to bend them very far. I just want to bend them a little bit to make them grip that pin, that header, and then it really won't fall off. You could, you know, if you want, you can get a small piece of wire and you can solder these two together. You can tin them. That's always an option. But I'm really happy. I mean, you can probably see there's a little bit of an angle on those 2 pins now, so they're splayed away. And I'm just going to kind of bend it back, put that jumper on, and that went on a lot harder, and it really doesn't want to fall off. So I've got a lot more confidence that that's not going to cause me a problem in the field. We're going to be using the first channel, so that is the top 3 pins, 1, 2, 3 on the top side, signal, positive, negative. And for this, depends on the pin, depends on how you wire it, but the way I'm going to go is it's going to be signal, positive, negative. And it's going to go just like that. So that's this guy prepped out. I want to make sure that I've got my distances figured out. I'm going to mount this right down here on the back, round about there where the finger is. These end up poking up out the top, so I'm really stoked about that. Don't need a whole lot of space. So I'm going to take this wire to give myself a little bit of something to play with. I'm going to do an S shape on it. And I know that this, where my finger and thumb is where it's going to mount onto the naze board, because that's where those pins join. So with this little bit of an S-turn, again, I can play with this if I need to. I'm going to be able to pull it out of the frame without having to disconnect anything, but it's not going to cause me too many grams. So I'm pretty happy about that. I've kept my fingers on there, and I'm just going to cut this off. So I've got a little bit of spare wire going, and now I'm not going to splay these the whole way, but I am just going to pull them apart just enough. And then I got to strip the tops, Be really careful on this bit, just take your time, go slow. I'm looking for maybe 3mm of wire to be able to connect down onto the pads. And again, depending on the quality of this wire, some of it shrinks more than others, so you could trim a little less and then it will shrink back. Drop a little bit of flux.
So Jay Stu's saying he uses ppm 2, but it does cut down the range a bit. Or a satellite receiver. So it's good for the small racers and stuff.
Ah,
Just
once you go for the distance and you start doing long range, huh? It's no good.
it's interesting.
Alright, I'm going to drop this back in the helpful hands. Boom, there you go. See that shrinking back already. And that's fine. A little bit of shrinkage. As long as you're ready for it. You know it's coming. There's nothing you can do about it. Right, put my board back in because I'm going to start going for those wires on my naze pad now. I'm going to be careful when I'm using this. Last thing I want to do is bust off my USB port connector, so be really careful with that. Don't snap it, otherwise it's pretty much toast. And alright, so the way around that we go here, oh, don't forget, got a pre-tin everything, tin it. Oh, I love training music for my China Step pilots. So I'm only going to go for the first three. That is ground, that is positive, and this is channel 1. Again, for the little racers, right? Keep it light, keep it minimal. Now I've got everything pre-tinned. This should be a lot easier of a job. Just start coming along, line these up a little bit, give them a little bit of a bend, get them prepped, get them ready. And I should be able to just kind of stick. No, my wires are getting close. I'm shaky. Get shaky, man. Alright, let's get some tweezers out. Help my life. Ew, I'm getting some splaying there. That was a bit rough, but you know, it happens. Just go with it. Stay with it. Stay calm. Just keep the heat on and try not to make any connections across the side. We got away with that one. Alright, there we go. No real issues. Ground, positive, signal 1 ppm. I'm going to get that bend that I showed you earlier. I'm going to get that bend out of it just like I'm after, so that will just chill right there. Happy? Next, I'm going to show you the lineup for the telemetry. Big fan of telemetry. I kind of hate flying without it now. You totally can. You can fly on just a timer, but I think once you've had the voice telemetry, it's kind of one of those comfort blankets or something. I mean, I really love it. So that's going to chill around about here. This telemetry wire needs to go in here, and that's not where I'm going to put it. Jesus. Alright, so I need less green, but generally that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run it on the bottom as well, just because I kind of want to keep that out of the way, make it clean, cool, tidy, whatever. So, I'm going to give myself the S turn again. I always like that little bit of slack. Going from here, back down, underneath, back up to where I want to be. I'm going to snip this wire around about there, just a tiny bit less. I'm just going to pull it back out of here. I don't need it in there right now. I just wanted to show everybody what it's all about. Sticky little bugger. Okay. Trimming this one's kind of difficult. It's a really thin wire, so kind of take your time on that. Be slow, be careful. There we go. Trimmed it. Sorry about that, just getting some messages. Australia never sleeps, and they're always into it when I'm into it. Busy, busy. Things are looking good. Sweet. Would you just text him back and say, per the diagram, more angles on number 1. You're like, I don't think 2 angles is enough. Just tell him that. Just be like, per the diagram, number 1, add more angles if possible. Sorry chaps, product development. Always got to keep working on this. Okay. And I dropped it. So I'm not going to worry about pre-tinning this again. What I'm going to do to make sure that my solder does come down is I am going to put just a little bit flux on this before I push it through the hole. And on this board, let's try to get the focus going. Telemetry, so you got VBAT, and then you've got buzzer, and then you've got telemetry. And so the telemetry is the one that we're going for, and we don't need the ground because we've got the loop coming out of the ground of this, so we don't need to double ground it. We're just going to go straight into the signal of the telemetry, which is on the same row as the inside. So that goes there. The wires poke through on the other side. I can see it. I'm happy about that. And I'm not going to use magic third hand. I'm going to find a way to do this on my own so that you all know that it is totally possible too. Or I'm going to quit and just magic third hand. Hello kitty. My cat wants my attention. Just a few more minutes, little kitty. Right, how's about magic third hand gets the soldering iron? And that'd be the cool thing, right? If you've got one of these, you can put the soldering iron in these, and that can be the point where now you're just like moving these two things in and out to it. But we've got magic third hand, so we're just going to get you heating up that wire right there.
Which one?
This one right here. Alright, you're done. You're taking a seat.
That's just too difficult.
Yeah, so that's kind of where you know, you guys might find that you're going to have better success by actually doing that. Let's just do it. I'm going to try it. I'll stick it in there. Pretty dodgy, quite dangerous, but it feels like fun, so why not? Let's do it. Alright, that's not going anywhere. Now, I shouldn't lose the wire out the back because it's already got a little bit of tin on it already. I'm going to get more tin just in the spot that I need. Gotta admit, that feels really weird. Having the soldering iron in a static position. But it went super well. I'm really happy. I've got that right where I need it to be. The wire's gone through. Again, the wire shrunk. It went back. It's not a problem. It's not a big deal. But the wire did kind of stick out a little high. So I'm going to take this back. Stick that away. And with a very accurate needle nose pair of snips, I'm going to come across the top. Ooh, we might have put a little solder on the top of that USB, but I think we're okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to snip it down. Just take the excess off. Nice, still there, totally accessible. The one thing that we've now made that's a bit of a pain for us, but you know, it's kind of cool that you guys get to see these things on the fly. We've got a problem with one of the buzzer wires having solder kind of blooped into it by shaky third hand. So we're gonna have to warm that up when I want to push the wires through. So it's a fun little problem to have to overcome. No big deal, but it's a little more difficult now than the way that I was doing it, where I could just push the wire through. Now I've got to heat the hole and push the wire and blah blah blah. You kind of need more hands for that. That's why I do that magic third hand. Well, sorry, that's why I do some of the things in the order, is to avoid having to use magic third hand. Just to try to show everybody that, you know, it's possible to do it on your own. Fiddly, but possible. All right. So we're going to go for a couple more wires now. What I'm going to do, now that we've got that prepped, is we're going to get the wires ready that are going to go from the power regulators back up into the nays to power the nays. And I'm going to use the sides of these wires, I'm going to use the sides of these. Loads of different options. You could always run, you know, some extra 3-pin header that you've got chilling, and you could take the signal wire out and you could use pin 6 and that could hang off here and that could run down. Totally viable, totally acceptable. You know, I'm just kind of using what I've got available to me and what I feel like using, and the way that I like to do it. So I'm going to just solder a couple of wires right on the sides of this negative and positive pin, and it's going to hang off there and it's going to come off the front because that's the closest position that I've got heading back down to my voltage regulators that need to supply me the 5 volts.
J-Stu's asking what our telemetry gives us info-wise.
Good question. So telemetry is all about the battery. All I care about is how much juice I've got left, how hard I'm pushing my battery, and you know, if I'm going to be able to get my drone home. And the telemetry is going to be reading the voltage from the raw battery. That was those 2 wires that are going off to the bottom to the VBAT. It's doing the processing on board, and then it's shoving the signal out of one cell down this wire. So it's doing some divisional maths, and it's shooting it off down there into the receiver, and then it's blasting it back out, so it's coming back down. And that's the beauty of the other recommendation that we make is, you know, get yourself the FR Sky Tyrannus, and the FR Sky Tyrannus with the settings that we provide. We're going to give everybody the config to do everything that we do. You just use our configuration, it's already built in, it knows about the signal, and it now pumps it out through the speaker that's built into this guy, which I think is actually right in the front. Yeah, you got the speaker right there. Or the way that we like to fly when there's multiples of us is you put a pair of headphones in the back so that nobody else has to hear it. You've got one set of headphones, bringing in the telemetry noise, and depending on if you want to do this or not, you can solder a microphone into your video transmitter so that you can have audio coming off the drone feeding back the propeller noise so that you've got more feedback, and then you've got the battery voltage in your other ear so that you know where you're at and how hard you can push it and when it's time to come home. But like I said, a timer will do the same thing. It's nowhere near as awesome. When you start using the telemetry, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna want that forever, and I'll find a way to make it work forever. Once you've had it, there's no going back. It's dial up to DSL, people. Just block out the other one. Okay, let's do a little couple of wires.
It says I like that you turned your 90-degree headers around. I wish I could have done that, but I can't without screwing up the magnetometer.
The magnetometer. So yeah, you've probably got the full version of the Acro. We fly the Acro? The Naze. You've got the full version of the Naze. We fly the Acro, where there's no magnetometer, you know, there's none of that. You know, keep it light, fly it, you're the pilot, you don't really need too much of it. We certainly don't use any of the GPS. So I've got one of my wires here prepped out. Let's just trim the ends, get that tinned, and then we will find a way. I never used to do these 90 degrees this way either, but you know, the resources and the team that we've got, they've come up with some super creative ideas, and so much of this is a blend of all of their genius that we've packaged to the customer and to everybody to really just kind of take the tips and do the best that you can with what you get. Minimalistic builds. Okay, a couple little wires to tin. I was expecting these to go back with the heat, so that's kind of why I cut those really short. This wire doubles in length when you start touching it with the solder. But that's cool, it works. It's just wire. Alright, so we're looking at the 5 volt to power the Naze. We want to be careful. Negative ground is on the outside, positive is on the center, signal is the very inside, so we don't want to mess with that. I'm going to put a bit of a twist on these. Because my heat shrink reduced itself and I don't want a lot of length on this, I'm actually going to cut a tiny bit off the very tip of both of them. Give me the length wire that I'm really after. I shouldn't see any more shrinkage. Yeah, shrinkage. Straighten that up just a little. Sorry about my big clumsy fingers in the way, but you'll get the idea. I'm going to pre-tin the sides of these pins to ensure that I get a super good stick, and it's kind of tricky. This is definitely my preference of doing this. Not everybody's going to want to do it. Like, a lot of people are just going to be like, that looks difficult, or it looks annoying, and they're just going to grab a 3-pin header and just jack it into 2 of the signals that aren't used. You're really only going to use 1 through 4 for the motors. But hey, this is me. This is what I love. So I'm going to prep the side of this guy. Pretty good. Happy with that. I'm going to build it up around a couple of sides. So I don't want these wires coming off, of course. That one's looking pretty sweet. A little gloopy, but it'll be okay. Same with that one. pretty happy with that. So I pre-bent these because of the way that I know I'm going to put them on. I'm going to put them on like that, keeping them low in the low profile, and one at a time. I might split my wires just a little. Again, it's somewhat order of process. The inside one's a little more difficult to get to than the outside, so actually those might not even be the right trick. Definitely get yourself a good set of pliers, people. Sometimes you need the needle nose, and even the angled ones aren't good enough, because you're not going to get tight in there. Because of the bend that I already put on the wire, I might do a little more. Now I'm going to be able to kind of grab that wire from down further, push it up against the upright that I'm after, and my fingers and everything can kind of stay out of the way, whilst I just line that up. Nope. Do that again. Whilst I line that up, and then with any luck, there we go, I'm going to solder that right on there. Ooh, I almost joined it to the wrong one. There we go. That one has been joined. Nice. No connections to anything unwanted, and it's pretty clean, and it gives me the short wires that I'm after. Not the prettiest piece, but you know, nobody really sees this. Man, it stays out of the way. Let me turn this just a little. See if we can get a better angle for you. Fiddly moments. Done. Let's just pull this off and see if we can't get a better tight angle shot on that. Here you go. Well, it's kind of crap. Can't really see it. We'll take stills pictures. You'll see it in the instruction log. It's in the stills. It looks loads better. There you go. Pretty cool. Pretty clean. It's using the two uprights right there on that naze board to connect those wires, and it works. So I'm really stoked about that one. That's about as far off as I should need it. It'd be hilarious if I didn't just give myself enough length, but I'm pretty sure I'm good. Like I said, I've done that one a couple of times. I've got to be able to reach off to the front side of that, so definitely on the short side of the wiring, but I'm going to make it work. I know it's a thing, and I'm going to have to just kind of work with it. Not a big deal. Alright. I have got one last wire to do, and then we are done with the naze before we start moving into the next section. So we're just going to power through this. I think looking back on what I had available to me, next time I probably would have used these wires in the opposite, because I've got some more length on the wires that come in the kit. I probably would recommend everybody use the wires that are in the kit for the section I just did, and the section I'm just about to do can use these two wires off of that spare signal wire. Anyway, buzzer. I love this. It says remove the seal after washing, so not sure what you need to worry about there, but I'm just going to go ahead and remove it without washing it. Probably going to wash my hands.
Washing?
I think so. I feel like they meant washing. I'm going to wash my hands after I touch this thing. You know, it really does, to me, it feels like a piece of plastic. I don't know what this shiny piece is. Maybe it's super toxic. Thank you, China. Alright, on the side of the buzzer you've got a plus. You also have a plus engraved on the top. So it keeps it simple for where you need to go. I don't want to hold the wire. So I'm going to do a little pre-tinning and we'll knock this out before we sign off for the day. That's kind of good enough. Gets a little bit of pre-tin on those two connections. I'm going to get a little more on the end of this. There we go. Positive is done. Same negative. Same, but different. I'm gonna love that movie. Cool. And those are done. Nah, can I have that back? I gotta get a little bit of heat shrink going. Thank you. Back into the kit bag. We're gonna get the skinny piece of purple heat shrink. And we're gonna bust off two 10mm sections. Because this stuff definitely comes in the kit, you only get as much as you need, so do measure it, do take that little time, because if you're just eyeballing it, you can be like, oh man, I've run out and I don't have any for the next bit that I kind of need against the instructions, so do take your time on that one, guys. The bit you're not using, drop it back in the bag, we'll come back to that later. And just pretty standard, we're just going to drop these right over the ends of these wires. Heat shrink that on. Sweet. And then these wires, I like to give them a bit of a twist. Helps keep the device in place a little bit. I mean, we're going to zip tie it as well, but still, a bit of a twist. It's good for it. Now we don't need too much length. Let's look one more time at the positioning of this. All of this is going to be chilling in here, and the buzzer ends up just kind of sitting down under here underneath the receiver, so we don't need all this length on these wires. That's definitely, I would say, from watching what I did, I'll try to put it in the notes, or maybe you guys are watching this through before you're doing it, but these wires are too long, don't need all that slack. Gonna cut a little bit off, not much, probably 10mm. Now that I've got them twisted, it's kind of easier to deal with that at this point. Get rid of that. Now because I know I only have to go through the nays, I'm going to cut these short, so that's a pretty short tip right there. And Thanks to shaky third hand, we've got some nays fun to have.
Yay!
Shaky third hand. Alright, so again, I like to just keep it clean, and I like to go through from the bottom. From the bottom, David. Okay. I'm going to grip this in here. I'm going to put that bloody hot thing down before I burn myself. I'm going to grip this from this side. Now I want to try to combine the fact that I need to see on one side, and I know you all need to see as well, so I'm going to give you this side of an angle, and I'm going to be kind of messing around from both because of that, that solder issue. It shouldn't be a problem. Again, positive on the inside, negative on the outside. Double check myself. Yep, that is correct. I've got a little bit of solder on the tip of that, so I'm going to knock that off. I don't want to mess this up. So I'm going to work the messy one and get that through. Nice, that worked really well actually. So it's not a bad thing, of course, to have a little pre-solder in the hole. It melted pretty quick. It allowed me to push it through, and then as soon as I let go, it gripped it. So that was actually a bonus. The negative, the ground, we never did get anything in that hole, so I should be able to just get it straight through. Just push it in. Just get a push. A bit of a push. Alright, it's starting to fray, so squeeze those wires, give them a bit of a twist, drop it in, give it a second chance, wiggle, wiggle. Don't like stray strands, just in case they turn and they touch something else. So I saw that happen, I pulled that back out, and the stray strand I just kind of twisted around itself. Just to be able to play some gentlemen. Alright, there we go. I don't want that falling out, so I'm going to keep the pressure on that wire whilst making my move for the solder on the other side. And I can keep the pressure on by doing something kind of nifty like that. That puts the bend on it that I need. So I'm just going to come under here and not cock it up. Feel like I'm going to cock it up. Yep, probably going to burn myself. Let's see. Change hands. You guys aren't going to have to mess around with so much of this angle concern. Take it easy, but I'm just trying to make sure you guys can see what's up. I'm just heating up the tip of the wire again. Gloop. There we go. Now we have the buzzer. The buzzer, another really crucial, cool, awesome piece of kit that I don't like flying without anymore. We set the radio up so that if you fly into a tall piece of grass and you're down but you can't find it, you flick a switch and the buzzer starts going off. It's also a second safety thing for the battery. When the voltage goes below 3.5, I think is what we've set it at, the buzzer's going to start going off again, and you'll just hear it as you're flying it by yourself. You're going to be like, oh, what's that? I'm not paying attention. And so it just lets you know on multiple different ways, get out the sky, stop messing around. So the green, the signal and the buzzer all go the same direction. Those guys are going to go that way. This is going to end up folding underneath and playing nicely, and the power on the front goes off the front. So we're pretty clean. I'm going to call it a night at that. We've prepped the nays. That is where we really want it to be at the end of the session. So it's really clean, it's really decent, you're not messing around, you're not having to re-shrink and re-worry about it. You've got some pretty good solder points on the top right there, and I've had a lot of good luck. All my drones are built like this, so feel free, make tweaks, make changes, make suggestions, throw it in comments. Always love to hear how people have made it even better. But we'll call it a night. Next time we'll get back, we'll do some voltage regulation. We'll probably finish off a little bit of that, and maybe we'll make it into the video, for the video transmission and the camera. Cool. Thanks for hanging out in the time warp.
Yep. Give our channel a follow. Hit us up on Twitter, Facebook. We'll be back on Tuesday next week.